In today's video, we'll take a look at a very familiar function, and that is the main function of your program. So you're probably familiar with it in the sense that you've probably written it hundreds of times, or the IDE already auto-completed it for you inside a file, so you didn't pay much attention to it. It was initially taught to you one way, and you just kind of saw that it worked, and you never really paid much attention to it. And what I fear is that some people get this declaration wrong, and there are some materials out there that actually do use the wrong definition of the main function. So let's get straight to it. How do you properly define the main function? Well, the first thing is just the name. The name is main, all lowercase. That's for sure. Then you just have the main body, the parameters here, and then the actual code that we're gonna write inside here. Now, the return type is the one thing that many people do get wrong. So, the return type has to be int. It cannot be void, it cannot be float or char or anything like it. It has to be int from the specifications of the C language, right? I saw also many people use no specification here, and if I try to, for example, let's print a statement here like hello, right? And if I try to run this, it is going to build and show me on the screen the hello world or the hello world here. Now not actually providing a return type is an obsolete way of declaring the main function. This is allowed due to backwards compatibility with other C programs, right? In the past this was allowed, but now it isn't. And why I don't want you to get this wrong is because in the future, like very far future, you might see compilers that don't support this sort of return type. So you have to actually specify a return type to the main function, and that is int. All right, so now that we know we have to declare the return type as int for the main function, why do we not actually use a return here? Like, don't we always have to return a value when we say that, okay, you need to return an int here? Like, this program compiles just fine, right? It works, it's no problem, and I don't have a return statement. Well, the thing is, most compilers, what they do, or actually the specification itself says that the compiler is going to add an empty return statement at the end of the main if it doesn't see any return statements. So this would be equivalent to our previous version, which was not having any return type in here, right? So, and then again, if you have a return without any value, it's going to simply return 0 as a default, right? So you just kind of, it just kind of defaults to return 0 all of a sudden, and that's basically the value itself. So if I try to run this, it's exactly the same, and it does say that the program has executed with code 0. If I try to change this to a 5, for example, I'm gonna get a different value, as you can see down here, right, with the code 5. So that's how you can control that exit code. That exit code, really what it does is it tells the underlying operating system what happened with the program. So a 0 would mean the program executed successfully and it's all right, you can continue. And if anything aside from 0 is an error code. So we've looked at the return type, we've looked at the return statement, we know the name is going to be main with lowercase. Now let's take a look at the parameters. We can have, at the very least, 2 parameters. Those 2 parameters are going to work on any environment, any C compiler, anything, because it's in the specifications themselves. Those are, and you might know of them, int argc and char pointer argv, or array of char pointers, which is argv here. And those are the actual parameters that are passed from the command line to this program itself, right? So for example, if I try to print here, let's say print %s \n, and if I do here argv of 0, you'll notice that I get the path to my executable. So that's always going to be the first parameter inside argv. Now you can go to debug and then project properties here, inside, this is Visual Studio, by the way. So if you go here and you change the, inside debugging, you change the command arguments. I added here --hell, but you can do anything here. You can say hello world, for example. And those are like executing the program with these command arguments, right? It's going to append them to the execution command line. And if I try to run this now and get the second argument, you'll notice I'm going to get hello on here. And as well, the third argument is going to be world, right? So they are actually split at space, and you have every single argument inside this argv. And you can actually just get a for loop like so. And then if I try to run this, I'm going to get every single argument inside the console here. So that's all nice. That's about all there is to these two parameters. So aside from those two parameters, there's a third one that is widely supported by most compilers, and you can probably use it. And that is envp. Envp is again an array of char pointers. So you go char pointer, envp array, envp, like that. And this can really be any name you want, but it's recommended to keep the names as is inside your program. Now, envp, really what it stores is the environment variables that you usually set inside the environment variable system settings that you might remember about. So basically every single program runs inside an environment with some variables set, like where's your, for example, Java executable, or where's your home directory, and so on and so forth. So in our case, here is where you can find those environment variables. And the weird part about this is the way you iterate it. So it's different from argv, because argv does have a counter, right? But this guy doesn't have a counter. This guy is an array, right? It's an array that ends with an element that is a null pointer, right? So if, for example, you have 3 environment variables, this array is going to be of length 4 char pointers, and the 4th one is always going to be a null pointer. So what you can do is say for I equals 0, and here I'm going to say envp of I is different than null and I++. And then I'm going to print f. Actually, I'm going to copy this thing. So here I'm going to say envp, and if I try to now run this, I'm going to actually comment out the argv ones so that we don't have that anymore. You'll notice I get a whole bunch of lines here on the screen, and those are all my environment variables that are set on my system, right? So you can actually get all of them here. And if you really need any of those, you can just sort of, let me actually run this again. You can just iterate over them, split at equals, right? And check the left side. If the left side is what you're looking for, that's the key, then the right side is going to be the value, right? So that's how you can get the environment variables inside your program. And that's really all there is to it for the main function itself. Not much, just remember the return type is going to be always int, lowercase main, don't change it to uppercase or something like that, it's not going to work. Then you have these 2 parameters that are always going to be available, that you should probably add them on your program, because you're probably going to use them at one point. And this third one is all the environment variables, and it's probably also supported by your compiler. And also don't forget to return a variable here, and it has to be an int, don't return anything else, right? So it's recommended that you actually have a return statement. Otherwise, yeah, sure, it's going to be automatically added, but just for consistency's sake, you should really add a return statement, because all other functions do have a return statement when they have a return type that's different than void. All right. So I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you now fully understand how to declare main. It's very simple. It's just some nitty-gritty details that some people gloss over, or they don't really care. It works without having a return type, but then again, you might risk that your programs are not going to work in the future, and that's an issue, right? So thanks so much for watching. If you do have any questions, do leave them down in the comments below or on our Discord server. We have a link down in the description. Take care. Bye.